right, so I'm just right here showing you, ancient geometry, which a lot of people know, but they don't care for it. They don't think symbols and drawings and pictures mean anything. But in the old days, it meant something, especially with how simple it was. You have archaeologists like, what does this mean? And it has this, it's like, bro, that's simple. You know what I mean? The whole part of it being from right here in the U.S. and then them trying to put it over there, the Middle East area, is where a translation blockage is. When you look at it like you're an American Indian right here that started, the world with the first tribe, everything on those all hieroglyphics and symbols and different ways makes perfect sense because that's where it all originated. I hate to say that, but I've had to go to work here and there, like Walmart, and somebody that's like doing grocery delivery or something. It's like shakes my hand, like, we were here before you. Well, that's another story. But natives helped people hunt demons and exorcise them, and always use the great spirit with great magic from the universe and the earth. The great circle. So, anyways, go back to the great circle. You have the middle one. You have the petals of three on one side and three on another side. If you ever notice, it's just like how there's a trifecta because it's split in half. So you have these ones for a 3D dimension, and then you have this one for the other side. But that's not what I was originally going to do. So you keep drawing this, boom, 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 another six, and then from there another six. And then from there you do two big circles for the outer crust or, circle of the blood vessel or the blood cell. In here you have all these different properties. Now, something that people don't understand about this formula that I have is originally it's from the tree of life and creation. It's from the circle of life being the almighty, God, Lord and Savior. Those people in movies as far as ordained or, this type of stuff right here is what lets all of you know how I was chosen as far as 21st century, like so many ways of saying the two in one, day and night, life and death, twins, two parents, it's the father and the mother of spirit, and, the whole purge and merge part is very important as far as evolution, not because we wanted it, but because a bunch of mischief and people messing with time, solar orbits, and like sun, taking away sundials and making the clock and crazy stuff that has to do with forward and reverse and positive traction. So, that has a lot to do with magnetics and, and tectonic plates and whatnot. So, anyways, this being a blood vessel, it has 19 circles altogether. One, then six, that's seven, then another one, that's 13, and another one, 13 plus six, that's 19. But no one ever thinks about the outside circles. So that's one and two. So instead of like the Earth where it says aminos and it says 19, it's actually 21 aminos because you need to have your outer wall, for your shield. But you always add one, take away one, or take away one, add one. In this sense, since nobody mentioned the two, that's one. So 19 plus one is 21. But, saying you add one after you take one away, since it's 21 aminos, you take one away. It's a little bit dumb in that sense, but since it's already 21, it just adds another because 1 plus 1 equals 1, not 2. And that goes for a lot of things like pair of socks, socks, gloves, and two spirits married. So it's one skin and one vessel. The skin is actually like not 2D, but from bird's eye view, from up, from down up. You see the sun; it's above. So you have that perfect pair as far as being masculine and feminine, two sides, yin and yang. That has a lot to do with everything in history. For instance, Twilight, when the chief is fighting the vampires and the third wife. You notice how it's a third wife instead of first, even though he shouldn't have more wives. It had a lot to do with Earth, and also like the Forsaken Son, most unclean, Satan, because how this whole trifecta splits into two, so that's 3/3. Or, you know, this whole part right here is one, two, three dimensions, like I said. And when you have that, you end up making a trifecta. But that trifecta, when you notice that the little ball is the Earth and it's going around the sun, what about when they split? Um, when they split the molecular state, and it ends up making like not a clone but two. Ends up drawing one to have negative energy, magnetism, and all that, and one positive. So that's the split as far as that type of not manifestation, but whatever that is. Pulling apart two. And when you have that, you end up having not just one right here in the solar system thing, but two. Then all of a sudden, those two have to, spin around the sun, and then they end up catching each other as far as duality and paranormal and, Witch Mountain and twin. You have a twin here, and, that whole story. But then when those two come back together from being two, they end up not only just having those two, but the molecular state also transforms them to, cross and engage. You end up also having a third. So it ends up being a multi universe. And when you don't take care of those and you have them combustion like a brick on the gas pedal and, steering wheel holding the wheel, you end up having, that whole collision of molecular freaking explosion of two atoms end up not being the same, compatible. And what happens? Big Bang Theory. So boom, right there. And they try to talk about that on the Flash, but of course he was going through time so fast that it's like it was his fault. But as far as us going through this thing called Genesis over and over and over and over and over, and from the first time it was like say 2012, you know what I mean? And that's when it ended. That world ended. The next one was like 2015. Next one was 2018, 2021, and so on. You know what I'm saying? So that's very big as far as people not being able to register how, naturally without the Genesis, people are saved with butterfly effect because that's how God rolls. Jesus is victorious. By the way, my name is Victorio and I live in the U.S. It's kind of sad how it took a long time for people to notice that, and it still is today. It seems like no matter how many put it out on blast, people will get excited real quick in the crowd, and then their hands will go down, and then they go back to like not paying attention. You're like, what the heck? And it happens within 2 minutes, 5 minutes. I mean, the magnetic pulse, as far as making somebody disconnect from memory or short term and long term memory, keeping interest, focus, short ADHD and all that stuff right there. Like, that's not just an illness or something like that. It's also something that's wired through a molecular vibration, frequency. Everybody is doing things that will either numb and relax their muscles because it will send messages to the brain telling the brain that you know low frequencies are actually curing and healing you. But all it does is just turns off your sensory to feel pain and injury. It just starts ignoring it and thinks that the muscle or ripped tissue or whatever is healed. You know, we come from high frequency, and even though this neutral becomes a negative and the other one a positive, we don't jump off of negative. No, that just keeps us in a low state of not being that really happy. And if somebody is happy at that stage, that's part of power of evolution, which I haven't seen. I just know that people that are from that side, when they come to this side, as far as it doesn't look like a jump or docking or anything, it's just when they come back together, everyone likes to stay on this one, positive. So I've seen some people that are from the negative world, or mission or purpose, as it was called, and they come to this one and they rather stay on this one. So no, 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 I can't hate on that. And so when you have this right here, you have to remember that 2024, the last dragon being solar and black. And like I said, in Apocalypto and many movies, that freaking monument, or that huge freaking black spear that goes around the sun ends up being a black eclipse, and it's at the same exact time on Apocalypto when the guy was getting his body stretched and he was about to get his head chopped off. That's because, like, even though they don't look related, that's a queen being uh, God's wife, tree of life. And so with her being an eternal mortal or immortal that's sacrificed herself, just like that Twilight stuff for her children, and Michael, the first archangel, she is actually eternal spear, huge as heck, but black, as far as being like a black widow, like in the pitch black of night, around the earth, it's pitch black. So you got to find what is opening up these black holes by kind of being a little bit smaller of a black hole looking. So that's the solar black sun, and that's the red solar sun. I tell people all the time, notice how it's a solar sun, but it's undercover being black. So that's where nature gets that little mark for the black widow, as far as it having the little red spot in the middle. It's very, very like parallels. It's similar, This one being a female defending her whole universe, the spider right here hanging on the web, ready to get the prey and not be the prey. So that's the transformation that happened with Michael and his wife Satan. People got mad at her because churches and all that different stuff made up some stuff, like they got mad, they wanted to end mankind. But if those two are man and wife and they share one skin and one vessel, that just means that they're trying to save their children, because mankind is God's children. Many threats we had was demons, like I was explaining earlier. And so, you gotta free the spirit and the soul if there is a demon inside of your mortal child, because you're a god. You have to free them so you keep that spirit with you and you just plant the seed later. It sounds very terrible because you're mortal, or a lot of people are mortal. But that's the whole issue with seeing Michael kind of looking very feminine and kind of vampirish with her wings, and she's all like pushing the guy off a cliff, or whatever. I mean, you got to pay attention to geometry, drawings, these type of symbols, everything, whether it's a whole picture or it's just those things that represent stuff like that. Remember hieroglyphics? They had that whole statue, kind of like he's kneeling. It's like a bathroom male sign, but he also has the bat wings, as far as being like a fallen angel. And then the other one has the same exact look, except has like fluffy wings, and it's white instead of black on the hieroglyphics. This lets you know that every single uh, text and scroll and stuff from the beginning really had some type of plan that was evil. because it was all dictating towards the crucifixion. So, with all of this being an issue, like I said, the female side, Satan, the angel of death, suicide, just like the movie Twilight with the chief's third wife. The third wife represents Earth. The third rock from the sun, because he's a chief, and the sun is, like the head bonnet or the crown. That represents a lot. There's another one that trips people up. When you have the third rock from the sun, as far as it having a little sun inside called a baby core, it's like the woman's head right here while she's laying down, and that's the, the stomach where she's pregnant. As far as that being a little, uh, that's true north. And then the stomach, as far as having a Dragon Ball, as far as Chinese culture calls it, but America calls it energy core. Me, I call it just a little archangel, not even born yet. It's a spirit. The spirit is actually way bigger than all of us, as far as that being a vessel of pregnancy. And that's where I said you gotta be careful to take care of it, protect the earth, being an earth guardian. In the old days, you had a lot more magic and wisdom. Today, it is shot out with material and possession of just mortal and object. And, nothing is object. So it's very sad how the great spirit world hides from everyone today. It's very sad. But the reason why this right here, saying when as a Black Widow being like, outer space being her web, is because whatever was opening these black holes had something to do with the influence through the void, the AI, and the nano, as far as dark matter, coming back to Earth and always trying to help out mankind, only to deceive and say we're like archangels, we're God's messengers. But those motherfuckers are dead cows and oxes and mooses, and it's like, no, you stand freaking 13 feet tall trying to bring me fire. Prometheus already brought us fire, and the first tribe, my tribe, they didn't even need no one to bring them fire. They already knew how to do it with the rocks and sticks and string and tying it, twisting it, while the bottom, does a little spinning thing. So you gotta look at all this. Nobody can tell me, especially, that, oh, we were here before. You're like other people. Hey, I respect that. That's what you're taught. But hey, your ancestors are dumb shits trying to steal the spotlight. Give us back our magic and don't use it for black magic. You have a lot of people using black magic. I don't know if you realize, but uh, King Solomon, he was known as King Master of the Demons, and he had his book where he was always doing the exorcisms and giving it to the you know pastors and the rabbis and stuff, and they were doing exorcisms. But instead of saving the people, those spells and all that were only to just condition the vessel to give up weaker and make the immune system living dead. You know what I mean? Instead of being living healthy, freed. So a lot of those sad cases, when you look at exorcisms, they act like they were doing their best, but it's that secret cult stuff where they're just trying to right away give more powers and energy to those demons while this becomes a host, and it gets more of that freakish scaredness where everyone's going to compile more fear, and it's going to travel, and it's going to create more vision and fusion. So I'll get back into that later because that has a lot to do with photons. um, but Apocalypto, here's that big black sun, and it gets in the way. If it didn't care about this one being that error and having that blood type that's mixed with everyone and making sure tribes and whatnot throughout time were mixed, then we wouldn't have this cure that I carry. Now that one, it moves out of the way, and like I said, solar sun, black sun. So you had three eclipses, but if you look it up today, the weird thing about the supernatural is they try to cover up everything, and I want to figure out who the heck I got to fire on that side, because it's a little bit embarrassing. It's like Beetlejuice. People think that you don't shit, you don't eat. You could meditate and train yourself because you're a spirit, but without that, you're already conditioned to your past life. So a lot of people still want to do stupid things like have money or McDonald's, and I'm going back and forth. I'm like, you freaking idiots! You guys are spirits, and you guys want to live like this in the mortal world. This is where I'm trying to save everyone, get everyone to get rid of money. plant food, garden, trade like that, be good neighbors, healthy, have your own designs, and whatever business at your own ranch, and everybody living healthy with nice calm weather. With me here, there's a lot more rain. It's real light. There's a lot more of wind that's calm. There's not so much of that crazy blizzard stuff that was in the beginning of 2024. And before that, it was just real bad. Places were getting torn up. But I know the science behind that, how it was all set up by these secret cults who know how to use different magics and science to put together. That part right here, his DNA plus all the other types, probably in more movies or whatnot, really got to the part where it finally got to the 25th, well, excuse me, 24th century. And you know how they say the parallel picture where this little dot is as big as this huge circle? That parallel thing with like Einstein? Well, that's the huge dot as far as a cancer cell. Then you have the solar sun, and that one is a red blood cell. So even though it's in the sky, everything that is macro is the same as micro. And I've been trying to teach people that. I've been trying to say, this Victorio, which means victor I, victor, and it's very big in the Bible, is the same as Jesus. But hey, I'm just a guy that people will somehow say, he's really smart. I don't think he's Jesus. I'm like, hey, dude, if you're another sheep herder that was tested, to die in the desert with his tribe and get, taken advantage of all the time, then that's your business. But if that was you, Jesus, and you connected the dots, don't get mad at me because you're one of those idiots that didn't believe the story that you would have to try to tell people explaining the truth about the Bible in America, you know? So I've gone through it. I got really annoyed. I was like, you know what? Screw some people, you know? And that sucks because everyone's like, oh, you wouldn't say that if you're God. I'm like, you have no idea the pain that you're causing me. So, anyways, you have the solar sun, the black sun, and the lunar eclipse. They took this one out as far as me helping with the spiritual thing because I'm a shaman. So when you look it up, it says that you only had two types of eclipses last year. When you add that solar sun, and the black sun eclipse, of course it's going to be little red circle with a big black circle behind it. Does that start looking like a blood cell? Either it's about to die or it's getting weaker? Yes, because it's in that stage of, transforming, mutation, evolving, It has to get used to the negative pathogens and build up an immunity to where none of it can bypass, can't get into that inner wall, You have this whole wall, it's only on the outside, but it thins out because as tree of life becoming tree of death, Satan, she actually woke me up because, like I said, I'm Jesus, and trifecta is not perfected until we figure everything out. And so, me being the male and her being the female of Almighty here in Bessel, but she's married to someone else. This whole demon thing and them trying to set us up with prophecy, they made sure she got married to someone else this time, which never happened before. But, I love her, and I said if I have to wait later on with this eternity, then I guess I have to because things got real bad as far as being undercover in this timeline. So you have the red blood cell, you have the black one. That's two circles. With the original 21 aminos, we made sure, like, saving all that, we didn't get amino domino. We didn't get no after death where there's nothing left, or dominoes. I like to call it dominoes, amino domino. You know, they're all trying to just knock them down and stuff at one time. But you add the two because it's considered one. It's those two: the solar sun male and the solar black solar sun the female. You have 23 aminos, and so you have to know how to put that into this blood cell, which I already have it. You know, genetically as well as being a creator, it's in my mindset to make sure that that's there. But the only thing is, when people try to trick me, take me to the hospital, act like they need my blood over and over and over, I'm like, nah, you are a bunch of hosts and you don't even know that you're possessed. So I was right there like, no, you're not taking no more blood. Plus, I made sure before this, I was like telling people on these YouTube or Facebook, I was like, my blood is, a certain type where you're trying to get something, and I'm like, magic, you're not going to get it because it right away shuts off. I already got used to all the times that I got kidnapped and all that, as far as being a native, being a guardian, having special powers, being a arc and a guardian. So, those type of things is what bridged other universes. Now, universes, they weren't under my belt because the people that were living while I was actually back and forth, trying to be here, getting sacrificed, getting thrown into crazy places where it's like, what the heck? Anyways, they weren't at all graduates. They weren't mature. They were smart scientists. They're greedy. They had to live another life in order to open up their own universe. Start going through those little tests or whatever. You know what I mean? And with that being said, those little universes are the ones that got infected with them implanting the thoughts into their minds. And so when you see movies that are based off stuff that you're like, that's not real, you got to remember, it's all real. It's just not the universes that were developed to already coexist and connect with the Almighty's universe. You know what I mean? They all go in like a ladder slash pyramid type of form. But the fact that these ones were worked on immaturely, people get abducted. So a lot of sacrifice rituals, experiments, people trying to open up the eye, get behind the eye, trying to figure out all that crazy stuff from the medieval days. They finally were able to keep contact of like Social Security, where I'm going to be born next. And it's weird. It's because so much time of going through it and then having all these type of things to set them up to be earlier on with technology, money, and wealth. From the future, you take it to the past. They build up more stuff. They try to act like if they were here before natives. Native Americans were the first. We had gold. We didn't even need to dig it up or nothing. We liked it in the earth. It did nothing other than data storage, energy. So therefore, the earth gets bigger, more powerful magics as far as being able to help people heal and all that stuff. But people, they do take the gold and stuff to different planets, acting like it's Anunnaki or whoever. Strip it of its, uh, you know, its foundations, its storages, its everything, and then they bring it back, and then it feels kind of like fake. I'm like, why does this diamond kind of make you think like if it was like a Jolly Rancher instead of being real? And people are like, oh, that's real, or like gold. I'm like, nah, it doesn't have that buttery slash hard stone ready to like bend easily type of feeling. It just always had that feeling like it's dull, like it's empty inside. So that's one thing I was noticing as far as people making our treasure properties devalue. Back to this right here. With 23 aminos, you had blackjack 21 and then also 19. We already knew that, but we're always wondering where was that one amino that was missing. I find out it's two aminos that were missing, so it's 21 that's supposed to be the earth. But for the vessel to actually make it, withstand hypnosis, being put under trance, sleepwalking, getting different type of disorders, schizophrenic, muscle memories, trauma, and all of that stuff that piles up. This immunity right here has all the blockage and everything just to help somebody never get cancer, never die. A little bit age, only if you don't meditate and focus, because everyone needs to have a little bit of spiritual awareness and key functions of, like constantly practicing. You like to do music, you like to, what I mean, do whatever that's something that's a good habit and a good hobby and like really good for you. So whether it's mental or physical, you need the spiritual side, and that will help eternal to live without having whites, because white hairs you get after like 200 years, 100 years. You know what I mean? It's just, you want them to stop? You just got to give yourself time to cleanse yourself, meditate, and focus, Bridge that part of where your mind gets tiny and goes to the functions of the blood or the white blood or the other blood cell, or, the brain, or any spot where you're feeling like I need to focus on it. It's really important to do that. So in this picture with all these circles, and of course the white blood cells in there that are not looking white because they're not active yet, it's in that uh, red blood cell that lunar white type of circles there, the red one and the black one. But it's a certain type of design I won't draw, just because this right here can get copied only so far. If you don't have the spiritual blessing, like how holy water used to be a long time ago when it was like Jesus, because they changed. Trust me, demons have been trying to mess up things to be negative instead of positive. Anyways, this right here, they could go only so far with the technology, but the blessing is where this won't come together at all. You end up harming, trying to constantly practice with the offspring and see which one finally starts evolving to, mix with its properties. And I don't want nobody to go through that. It's all about making sure that this is completed with the one that, like in heaven, Michael and Satan, or Michael and Miss Michael. People never read enough research to look it up. Um, yeah, she's here on Earth, but like I said, with one of these trifectas, demons and all this stuff of classes that are trying to run money and have radio stations and shit. Like you wouldn't think that, but Beetlejuice, not like that, but a dead giveaway as far as people looking alive, healthy, and living with these stupid habits of money and ripping people off, laughing at each other. Stupid ghost type of spirit entity type of living. I mean, they like to mess with us being on the lowest part of Earth. But with that being said, I wanted to find the one that I knew because I know that one is different from the one that looks like her that's married. And then there's one that's actually an adult actress as far as hearing stuff, barely seeing that she's like a suicide girl on her tattoo, but it's trippy. If you look up your name, you probably won't find it because of how the supernatural kind of keeps you blind while everyone else is tripping out. Probably making up stories like, hey, you're that chick or you're that dude. And you're like, what? Well, that's that whole BS of a trifecta and then them getting ready for the Big Bang Theory. So, again, there's certain people I've been after, you know, Zionist, Jewish, um, not really German, but they were very, very evil. It's just the military scientists were, but as far as just them being country people, where, Satan having her kingdom there for a while, undercover stuff, finding out all this stuff with me, and her going through the heaviest test. Like, if you're an eternal and you're over here, okay, you're gonna be, chugging poison, whatever the heck, gases, gas chamber, and you die, you go to the other one, and you're back to normal. But you die over there, as far as a spirit tree being eternal, you get taken out. Game over. My wife would have been erased from history. She would have dissolved, disappeared. There's no place to find her. It's like stardust, nothing left. So this part of bridging immunity was for all children of creation, as well as her being able to get killed over here and there and still have 1 billion times plus her magic. And because I'm actually like a endless deck of cards where I might be mortal, but I was, but I kept coming back, no matter what. It's like, we just killed this guy yesterday. Why is he walking down the street? And it's not like I notice or I remember. It's just that part of one separation getting thrown in the trunk while the other one didn't even notice because I was just mostly here walking. And so it's like two things happen at once while you're walking down the street. And one guy that doesn't get picked up, thrown in the trunk or whatever, just kept walking, never noticed the incident. So that's kind of part of my life being Holy Ghost. I mean, everyone was always set up trying to target me. Instead of being prayed to, the 33-year-old that was crucified, I ended up getting preyed on, being 33 to 36 where I'm at now. So I have a lot of experience these last 3 years that jogged my memory from kind of being asleep for a long time. This right here is where I'm the holder, I'm the carrier. But as soon as I get it to the right woman who, like I said, she's the same person spiritually that's in heaven, being the wife, we'll be able to have the vaccine, the whole cure for everything just by, our children, just like our other children, your siblings, just breathing and living life like it's just curing everything. You know what I mean?